On the CANSA Couch with Megan and Kudzai.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our podcast On the CANSA Couch. As we are entering into the festive season and it's summer now, it's sunny outside and we want to do everything outside with our friends and families, we thought it would be a lovely time to start talking about Sunsmart living, reducing skin cancer risk and keeping our children safe at school. Skin cancer is not only a concern for young people. A large number of diagnoses happen in people in their 50s, 60s and beyond. So I'm very excited for our podcast today and I hope you guys will enjoy it, as I also welcome my co-host Megan. How are you today, Megan?
Hello, Kudzai. It really is a pleasure to be with everyone here today. And I'm going to say I'm so excited about this podcast because I think it is long overdue. And with this heat that we have, we need to start taking care. So I want to know how to do that.
Absolutely, Megan. Joining us today, and I know Megan will introduce shortly, is Dr. Donny Fick. So over to you, Megan, for Dr. Donny.
So Dr. Donny, welcome. Dr. Donny Fick is...
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Megan.
It is a real pleasure to have you with us today. He is a general practitioner in Johannesburg. He also has 5 years in plastic and reconstructive surgery at Mill Park, treating skin cancers. So he's a key opinion leader for L'Oreal Dermatological Beauty, as well as a media doctor for Idol's SA. I watched that. Big brother. I watched that. Miss SA. I watched.
Get you to speak for a moment.
And what I'm really excited about is that you're a runner and also, of course, a Sunsmart advocate. So you don't only practice, but you also you practice what you preach, basically, don't you?
Practice what I preach, and I run after my wife, who's the faster runner. She's by far the nurse athlete. I'm just there to make sure she wears the sunscreen. But thank you for having me on this podcast. It's something I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about talking about skin protection, especially when it comes to the sun. And I think going into the December holidays, as I like to say, 'tis the season for the outside. We need to be protected when we're outside.
100%. And with that being said, let's just start being really simply. What does being sun smart actually mean in our everyday lives, Dr. Donny?
I think for me, being sun smart means being aware that UVA and UVB rays cause damage to your skin. I think that's the first thing. I think being aware of the damage that it could cause, that's step one of being smart. Once you're aware of that, I think it's about taking the necessary precautions to protect yourself against them. So we know that UVA and UVB rays come from the sun. In South Africa, we have a very harsh climate. We're more exposed to that with a high UV index. So now we know that. Now we need to protect ourselves against that. So we need to wear a hat. We need to wear shades. We need to stay out of the sun during those peak midday periods and never, ever leave home without putting sunscreen on. Even if it's overcast outside, UVA rays do penetrate through those clouds. Make every day a sunscreen day and wear sunscreen. That's about being, for me personally, that's what being sun smart is about.
And definitely on the entire family, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's also, maybe because I don't have kids, so I see this as a little bit different. But as parents, I think we need to engage with our kids, right? And we've seen a shift towards that as well. Like I remember when we were at school, we never wore hats. We were out in the sun all the time. I never wore sunscreen at school. It was just something that never was thought of. My wife being a school teacher now, their kids, you can see them, wide brim hats, sunscreen on, long protective sleeves. We're definitely doing well in the education front there. So parents are doing a good job, but there's always more space for more education, I do believe.
You mentioned, Dr. Donny, that the sun is harsh here in South Africa. I've often heard that statement that, we receive the harsher sun. What does that mean? And how can we protect ourselves from that harsh sun that we receive here in South Africa? What would you advise us to do? Like if we were to make a to-do list of sun smart habits, what would you advise us to do, Dr. Donny?
So I think the reason why we have harsh sun in South Africa is because of where we're geographically located in terms of longitude and latitude, and my geography is not so good. But the ozone layer is maybe less potent over South Africa, but there's this band that runs from like sort of Brazil, South Africa, Australia. And you see that's where those countries have the highest UV index. And I think that's how we measure it. Like UV index is how we measure how harsh the sun's ray is on that specific place. And if you look at Europe and North America, they tend to have UV rays around 4 to 6, which is mild to moderate. In South Africa, Johannesburg, I think today we might be at like 9 or 10. It's easy to look at that on your cell phone, on the Apple weather app. It will show you not only the temperature for today, but the UV index as well at that space that you're at that time. And then you can break that up to mild, moderate, severe. And then you can do your to-do list of what you should do. For example, wear a hat. If you're going to be outdoors in the sun, wear a hat, wear sunglasses, wear long protective clothing, and wear your sunscreen. If you can, avoid peak sunlight hours from 12 to 4 in the afternoon. Stay away from the sun there. Seek shade at all times. And even if you work in an office job, right? Even if you work outside, you're not in direct sunlight, but you've got this big glass window in front of you, wear your sunscreen because those UVA rays still penetrate through windows. So that's the to-do list, like hats, sunglasses, protective clothing, sunscreen at all times.
That's really interesting, Dr. Donny. So what we're saying is shades in them. It's not just for fashion, actually. They protect our eyes from the sun, which is really nice, I think, for people to know that it's actually cool because they're a trendy item, while at the same time you're protecting yourselves from the sun.
You know that their phrase of like, don't throw shade. I think in South Africa, we should throw shade, right? I think we should be one country where we should be throwing shade on everyone physically, not on that, cultural tip.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Donny.
And I think what's really, maybe just valuable to say here in Kudzai, I'm sure you're going to mention it a bit later, is the whole thing about our cancer seal of recognition products and how we have these products that Dr. Donny is talking about, that they have been independently checked and tested and ensuring that they actually are giving us the sun protection we're needing. Is that not so?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that segment actually, because we do talk a lot about the products that we have at Cancer, in our Cancer Smart Choice Seal of Recognition program. And I'm so excited to share with all the listeners all the products that you can use that are cancer approved, that you can use to actually protect yourselves from the sun. We are really excited about this segment. It's one of our favorites here at the Cancer Seal of Recognition program.
And can I just chip in there for a second that like we say use sunscreen, right? And obviously there's a huge price barrier to some of these things. And I do appreciate that in a South African context. We always say, what's the best sunscreen to use? And it's the one that you actually use. It's the one that you can afford to use and apply daily. However, the caveat to that is not all sunscreens are created equally, right? And I think we're looking at these products, and I'm sure you'll go into a bit of detail with us. Look for something that's got an SPF factor of 50. Look for something that's got UVA and UVB protection. I think those are the important take-home tips to take as far as that's concerned.
Absolutely. I look forward to hearing more about that. And with that in mind, is it true that skin cancer is one of the most preventable cancers? I couldn't believe it when I heard that. And if that's true, what simple actions can we actually take to help lower this risk dramatically, if I may add?
I always joke and say, imagine there was a magic potion that that if you took it daily, it would prevent you from having skin cancer. And I think to a certain extent we do. We have that in the form of sunscreen and these protective mechanisms that we spoke about earlier. The less exposure you have to these harmful rays of the sun, the less likely you are to develop skin cancer. I think that is what it is, right? That's the crux take-home message of it. So, it's the same with lung cancer and smoking to a certain extent. If you don't smoke, your risk of lung cancer is reduced, not to say that it won't happen. And also with skin cancer, if you stay away from the sun as much as you can in the South African context, your risk decreases as well.
That sounds very doable.
It does.
It does, right? But in theory, we say that's very doable. But if you look at our South African lifestyles, everything is outside, right? Like we're going into this December. No one wants to spend time indoors. We're all outside. How many of us are protected? That's the thing. It's braais, it's beach, it's bikini weather. People are going to be going down to the oceans in their hundreds of thousands. But how many of those people are being protected? So yes, sounds easy in theory. The practical application, I don't know if we're getting it right so much because we're seeing our cancer statistics go up, right? So clearly we're not doing it good enough. Our skin cancer statistics going up. And clearly, as easy as it sounds, we're not doing enough to contact that.
Absolutely. And I often see people walking around, especially with a cap and then the ears are open, or people whose jobs are, outdoors and they're working in the sun, and then they don't have anything, in terms of protection. And that I usually think is a real concern, because for them, it's an everyday thing.
Yeah. And obviously, the more exposure, the higher the risk, right? So it's about running those ratios. And if those ratios are in favor of you spending a lot of time in the sun, please protect yourself. And especially if you have a family history, right? Family history of skin cancers, all these other things play into this. If you've got a slightly fairer skin, yes, you do need a little bit more protection. And then there's this misconception that the darker skin types in South Africa don't need sunscreen or protection, because we hear things like black don't crack, like melanomas are only for lighter skin people. That is definitely not the case. And I think, yes, the risk is slightly less, but the risk is still there.
I think there's a lot of education that we need to have more around such topics, Dr. Donny. Like, for example, in our communities, like you said, people think darker skin, you don't have risk for skin cancers. And also you mentioned something about the UV index. I wasn't aware of that actually, that you can actually search that UV index.
Just open up my phone and you look at the weather app, or is the...
And it's nice that we actually have these tools on our hand that we can actually use how harsh the sun is on a particular day, and if you need actually to have that extra protection.
It will ask you, do you do?
Yes, I see it.
So we just click.
So today, it's being overcast in Johannesburg, it's at a 5, which is moderate. But there are days, when the sun's shining, that it goes up to an 11 or 12. So there's a practical way of everyone looking, where you can look at that. If you look at Friday, for example, the forecast is a UV index of 10. I think very high. And if you look at what the guideline in terms of those UV indexes, it's like stay out of the sun. It's very high, like use protection. That's very good.
Thank you for that, Dr. Donny. And it's something that I feel, like you said, it's on our phones. We should, engage more with this information that gives us those practical tips that today the UV is really high, to reminder, like sort of a reminder that we need to have that sunscreen out there. We are lucky that our Christmas season is always summer and we get to be outside. So let's, I encourage everybody to take those extra precautions. So when you talk about skin cancer, Dr. Donny, what signs or symptoms should people, especially older adults, never ignore on our skin? What warning signs should we never ignore?
So we always say the ABCDEs, right? A for asymmetry. So if you've got a lesion on your skin that is asymmetrical, meaning the one side doesn't mirror the other, be concerned and go and seek help. B for border. If the borders are irregular, please go and get it checked out. C for color. If the color is different throughout the lesion. E for evolution. No, D first, right? My alphabet's bad. A, B, C, D. D for diameter if it's more than 0.6 millimeters. And E for evolution. If that lesion is changing, then you need to go and see a doctor about that, please.
Now, that is something I'm going to remember. That kind of sits well with me.
A, B, C, D, E, right? Not what Donny said, which is A, B, C, D, A, B, C, E, D. Like, I need to go back. Diameter first. The D always before the E, right?
Excellent advice. Thank you so much. And I have to actually at this point ask, when we're looking at sunscreen and obviously being outdoors, before I go even further looking at just different, we were looking at our elderly now, how often should we be applying, or is there something like that, sunscreen if we're outdoors? Is there something like that?
100% every 2 hours. So if you're going to be in these high UV indexes, as we've discussed earlier, and you're outside, every 2 hours you need to reapply. I think we speak a lot about application of sunscreen, which is very important, but the reapplication of that is just as important, because after 2 hours you're still leaving yourself vulnerable. So you need to do reapplication every 2 hours.
Oh, it's really helpful. Thank you. And then when it comes to our children, particularly now, outdoors at school, and even more so, now during the holiday season, why are they specifically or especially vulnerable to sun damage?
Because if you look at some of the studies, and I speak a little bit out of turn here, that the most damage that gets done is before the age of 18. So if you can narrow that down and reduce your risk before the age of 18, you'll do much better. And I think we spoke about the elderly previously. That generation, and I see a lot of those patients in my GP practice, 70 years old, worked as a farmer in the sun for long periods of time. Now they've got these lesions on their arms everywhere. They've got their thick, leathery skin. They've got all these basal cell carcinomas or squamous cell carcinomas as well. It's years of exposure. So if you can start these habits early, right? Like any habit that you want to develop, I mean, start them early and we really reduce the risk, but we get you into that practice all the time.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
And speaking of schools, Dr. Donny, what practical, affordable steps do you think our schools in South Africa can take to protect our listeners, our learners and listeners from the sun?
This is such a cheat for me, right? Because I'm married to a school teacher. So we work well in harmony and synchronicity together. So I feed a lot of her in terms of education, vice versa. But not every school can afford lots of sunscreen. But there's the simple things of stay in the shade, wear a hat. These are more or less expensive ways of doing things. So if we keep our children in those peak midday hours where the sun is at its harshest, in a shady area in the classroom wearing a hat, that's one thing that we can do. Lots of these big brands have come on board and sponsored sunscreens to schools. So we've got these dispensers, we've got that education there. So schools are taking initiatives. As I said, when these kids play sport, I see at my wife's school, wide brim hat. I often tease her a little bit saying not as fashionable as it could be, but hey, cancer we'd rather be unfashionable than have cancer. That's what I wanted to say.
100%. 100%. And that's a very practical solution, like you say, using sunscreen to have those shade policies in school. And I suppose also maybe schools can start to think about scheduling sports wisely when it's too hot. And like you say, when the UV index is very high, maybe minimize the sporting activities outside or encourage that reapplication of the sunscreen like you told us to do. I actually used to think maybe if you just put it on once, then that's enough for your day. So it's interesting to know that, no, we actually have to reapply every 2 hours, reapply that sunscreen to get that maximum protection. Thank you so much, Dr. Donny.
Now, moving towards the athletes, I must be honest, I'm going to take notes here because I'm secretly also going to share this with many of the people in my running club. But as a runner or as a sportsman, what do you see people, what mistakes in terms of sun safety are people making all the time that you wish we would change or improve on to help protect ourselves from the sun when we go out and do sport or run?
So this is the thing. I think runners are very meticulous people. We like planning things, right? Like we plan race strategies down to a T. We plan our nutrition. We plan our running shoes. I plan that all my colors coordinate with each other, that the sweet glasses matches the shoes. Meticulous planning. However, we don't meticulously plan as runners, and you can speak to all of your friends. We don't meticulously plan about how we protect our skin. Yes, we want to have the latest shoes. Yes, we want the colors to match. Yes, everyone talks about nutrition. What hydration are you using? I wish we would speak about protecting our skin with the same amount of energy that we speak about nutrition and hydration. Not to say that's not important. It is just as important. But if we protect our skin, that's the long-term goal, right? Like short-term, yes, we'll get through the marathon. Long-term is we want to know what damage is being caused 20, 30 years down the line. I don't want to mention names, but you look at some of these ultra-marathon runners that from years gone by, you look at their skin and you're like, wow, we see hypopigmentation. Not mentioning names. We see sun damage, not mentioning names, but these are popular distance runners. We all need to do better.
And I think it's quite an interesting point is those that are applying sunscreen, we're wearing things like peaks, etc. But maybe it's time to start looking at something that offers a little bit more coverage as well.
And also, sunscreens now come in smaller bottles. And I think we're always packing nutrition into our little bags that we run marathons with. And this is very important to our athletes that reapplication every 2 hours. I take 5 hours on a marathon. So I need at least 2 different applications in that race. So reapplication on a long run is very important. Then we get the runners that run between 5 and 6:30 in the morning. They start out in the dark on a training run. They feel like they don't need to wear sunscreen because when they woke up in the morning, there was no sun. But they need to still apply that. So those are maybe 2 very important take-home notes.
And I must add, one thing that I learned from someone when I was doing one of the runs in actual fact about 2 years ago on Robben Island is I had the sunscreen on and it was running into my eyes and I couldn't see. And he actually said to me, do you know what you must do next time? He said, next time you take your petroleum jelly and you put it onto your eyebrows and then you put on your sunscreen and it doesn't run into your eyes. And since then I've been doing it and it's a fabulous top. Works.
There are some sunscreens that don't run into your eyes. So you got to pick a formulation. There are ones that don't run into your eyes. It don't leave that horrible white cast on your face so your Instagram photos still look fire. There are all those things. And it's about choosing your formulation correctly. So yes, UVA and UVB protection, it's for 50. But your formulations don't run into your eyes. Don't leave the white cast. Maybe those are some of the ones that you need to choose.
That's a good thing to mention and to be aware when you actually do get your sunscreen. Thank you for that. And then one thing that I just thought, to also mention at this point in time is before wrapping up, I think it's time to really highlight, as we chatted earlier, the CANSA Smart Choice Seal, Kudzai. And if you can tell us a little bit about it and how it makes it easier for us and the public to make safer and cancer smart decisions when buying their products. I think that can be really helpful because even now I've just learned, if you can have your sunscreen and make sure that it doesn't actually run if you're putting it on your face. What more can you tell us and how can we go about making our choices?
Thanks, Megan. So the CANSA Smart Choice Seal is our prestigious seal that assists the public in making healthier choices that assist with reducing the risk of cancer. We're very proud of our seal. And this seal is not just put on any product. We actually have very strict criteria for each and every category of the products. As you know, we have the edibles category, the protection category, non-edibles, physical activity, and patient care category. And today we are speaking specifically about the protection category where we speak about sunscreens, UV garments, and all the things that protect us from the sun. So when we talk about the seal, we want the public to know when they go into the shops and they're shopping around, they know that any product that carries our seal is a product that has been independently verified, scientifically tested, and has the highest credibility. With specific reference to sunscreen, we look for things like skin irritancy. Does this product irritate the skin? And we would like products that do not irritate the skin because so many people can have that allergic reactions to the product. We look at products that are free from all carcinogenic, toxic, and hormone-disrupting substances. So these are substances that actually do not leach into your skin to cause further problems, like, for example, skin reactions or any discomfort to the skin. So this is what we would advise people to look for when they are looking out for a sunscreen product or a shade product like the UV garments as well. We have the arm sleeves, the UV arm sleeves. We have the hats. So we look at that. The sun protection factor as well is important, as Dr. Donny mentioned. We thought, the higher the better. For our hats also, we want you to look at for the tag, the swing tag that says this product is approved by CANSA, and it's a CANSA seal of recognition. So we have all these number of products, and where you can find them is if you go on our website, www.cansa.org.za, you will see on the seal of recognition section of our website, you'll see all the partners that we have in these categories. And we encourage you to have a look at our website, have a look at our partners, and we encourage you to support these partners because their products have been verified and we know that they can provide that protection for the public. Thanks.
Thank you, Kudzai. I just like basically summarize that and help me if I'm correct. So now I walk into a store and I walk up to the shop. Am I right in saying the first thing I'm going to do is, if I'm looking for a sunscreen, is make sure that it has the CANSA seal of recognition on it?
That's correct, Megan. I would advise that when you go into the shop, have a look at the products that are there. Look on those logos that are on the products. And if you see the product having a CANSA Smart Choice seal of recognition, that's a product you should absolutely go for because we take pride in these products and there's a lot of meticulous research that goes behind these products to ensure that they are safe and good for the public. So I would encourage everybody to do that, actually. Those are the best products you'll find on the market.
because I have seen some of them, on the front of the product, and then I've picked up a product and I've seen some of the seals on the back of a product. And of course, I do have one of the hats, and that I obviously saw it had the swing tag on it, and it told me it was also, it is a Cancer Smart choice. And one of them actually had the little Cancer Smart, like, should we say, tag in the hat as well, which was nice. And then, of course, the shade items are great, especially for all ages. So those are all really nice. The moment I just look for that, making my choice easier because you've done all the work. I know I'm going to be making a choice that's definitely going to benefit me. And then the most important, if I understand correctly, is every 2 hours, if I'm in the sun, to reapply, keep covered where possible. Those are all the important points with that. Sum it up.
1,000.
Sum it up. Thanks, Dr. Fick. Yes, 100%. 1,000%, as he says.
And then there were just 2 or 3 little fun things that I wanted to share with everyone, that we're all together today. And I want to put it out to everyone is we sometimes wonder about these, should we say, Sunsmart myths that people put out there. So I know I'm speaking to the experts here, but I don't burn, so I don't need sunscreen. True or false?
False.
False.
Because the UV will burn you, but the UVA causes the cellular damage that causes cancer. So even if you don't feel the burn, the damage is still happening.
It's still happening.
That's interesting, Dr. Donny. So you say you don't necessarily have to feel the burn for that damage to be occurring. That's really interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I thought maybe, when you feel that burn is when you feel, I've been in the sun for too long. I think that's an interesting aspect. Don't you think so, Megan?
On a day-to-day basis, traveling to work, like driving in your car, those UVA rays are penetrating through the window of your windscreen. That's causing cellular damage if you're not protected. So you don't feel the burn on the way to work, but damage is still being done.
And then we have another true or false here. Dr. Donny, perhaps you can answer this one for us. Can sun damage be reversed? Yes or no?
No. So we can't roll back the hands of time, right? And that's why, your skin is forgiving to a point, but damage can't be reversed.
So we must protect ourselves.
100%.
Dr. Donny, I've also seen on social media some other myths that I want to ask you about today. I've seen people say, actually, sunscreen is bad for you. Sunscreen causes skin cancer. Can you touch a bit on that? What do you think about that, Dr. Donny?
I think it's very important as to where you get your facts from and your knowledge from. And I think in the big plethora of social media, I think there's a lot of misinformation. That unfortunately is one of them. I think we need a whole different podcast to talk about that. But from my point of view and from the science, it doesn't cause cancer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donny. You've heard it all, everybody. Sunscreen does not cause cancer. Thanks, Dr. Donny.
Thank you very much to Dr. Donny, and thank you, Kudzai, for giving us a little bit more information about the Cancer Seal of Recognition, and Dr. Donny for your wealth of information about sunscreens. And if you haven't bought yours yet, please go and get it, ensuring that the year ahead is basically one filled with protection for you and your family. Go onto our cancer website at www.cancer.org.za. Look under the Cancer Seal of Recognition, then look under the protection category, and you'll see all the Sunsmart products, and they have the Cancer Seal of Recognition seal on them. And if you get stuck, send us a message. You can make contact online, and we can send you that link as well. But be Sunsmart. Protect yourself and those you love, especially the little ones. Remember, most of the damage is done before the age of 18. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Donny.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays. See you in 2026. Have a good end of the year.